And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the weekly weather waffle. Sorry, a little bit delayed there, as usual, the technical glitches. But good evening. Hope you're all fabulous, and thank you for your company on this beautiful, gorgeous Sunday afternoon with the best of the winter weather on display. Well, I mean, it was cold, but it was still okay. Hey, it was not too bad. Hope you've all had a fabulous weekend. Hello, Rachel. Lovely to see you, and hope you're all well down there. It's sort of quiet out there, so maybe it's only you and I today, which is cool. We can just chill the fat and go through what we got to talk about. But let's get into it, I guess. I'm not sure where everybody is, but I'm sure they'll catch us up soon. I'm just going to actually quickly update this so we can get everybody in the chat. Anyway, we have a bit to talk about today. There's a bit going on in terms of not much with the weather, as usual, but we'll try and obviously make it a bit more interesting for you. Bit of a quiet week coming up ahead. We'll look at last week. We'll look at some of the rainfall again outlooks for the next few weeks and into the summer as well, and answer your questions. But let's get the satellite going. There's not much happening with the satellite either. It's pretty much we'll put on visible so you can see it. You can see pretty much on there what's going on in terms of the change, and you can see all that lovely rippling Spanish mackerel, sort of cirrus and that sort of stuff, and all the waves in the cloud showing very strong jet stream activity, which is not unsurprising given where we're at. Oh, let's get on with this. I'm going to put it actually up, and away we go. And that's where we need there. I'm talking about the jet south picking and I haven't even put it up. Anyway, away we go. Looks like you and I, Rachel. I'm not sure everybody else has gone, but even Mr. Wells not here. I swear I put the thing on for 5 o'clock. Anyway, it is what it is. Yeah, no, it's got to actually select the screen to show it rather than sitting there yabbering away and not realize I actually hadn't put it up. Anyway, well, it's you and I, Rach. So let's get on with this. Sorry, I should say Rachel. I always shorten people's name, and it's a bad habit of mine. But anyway, well, this is what obviously we've got going at this stage. We can see this cold front coming through, and we can see this really aggressive, active westerly flow here, which is obviously relocated north. It's very much indicative of an active phase of a negative SAM. And you can see these winter westerlies ramming through. And of course, that means offshore winds for us, cold and dry. You can see here. If I stick on the radar, we'll see that there's not the widespread sort of convective rainfall you expect, and so you get these sort of popcorn showers. Of course, because the air is so cold, and cold air doesn't hold that much moisture, as we know, well, not as much moisture as warm air. So you get these little sort of popcorn cells. They stream along across the Southern Ocean, pick up better moisture, and it's sort of mid-level cloud too. So there's not a lot of upper level clouds, so you can just show how shallow the convection is. So they don't get to hold a lot of moisture, and of course the air's cold, so it's even less. So that's why you get these sort of very light showers. And you can see then as it comes up into the east here and push up against the snowies, the cloud starts to compress, of course, and then you start to see a bit more organised showers through the Melbourne area there. Not much to the west of us, and it's probably mostly under the radar anyway if it was going on up there. And we could probably have a look at the webcams in a minute and see what is going up in the hills. But thank you, Rach. I do have a bad habit of shortening people's name, and I just realised sometimes it could come across as a bit rude and presumptuous, which is not my case. I don't know, it's something I do, shorten people's name. All right, let's have a look what's going on locally. We'll have to probably move into the infrared now, because it's getting that time of day where the visible sat peak sort of does go on for a bit of a break. You can see some showers popping in and around here, especially in that sort of upper cloud. Most of that would be Virgo. I think there's actually cloud outside. Then so I looked out the window. Not a scary cloud out there, so I think that's that little dot on the radar there is probably just some dust, pretty upper level dust from the coming across from the Great Dividing Range and the Blue Mountains. We can certainly see here there's definitely some obviously some cloud and moisture pushing into the west, but of course, as I said, it's below the radar beam, so it's not going to get picked up. But what we do is we're going to actually pop in and have a look at some of the since there's only the two of us and we have a nice little chat, we can pop in and look at some of the webcams and see just what they're seeing. Although there's probably not going to be many of them, I think. Last time I looked, they Unfortunately, the Oberon Council turned theirs off, so that was one of the best ones to look at. Or I think that someone's privatized something like it's a subscription service or something ridiculous now. So everything seems to go. But looking through across here, we can see that bank of sort of oh, undo that. Made it went full screen. We can see that bank of sort of also cumulus, but even stratocumulus there. To the west is that sort of moist air hits up against the Great Dividing Range and sort of banks up, and we get the sort of dry backflow of it. And where's a good view of the back here? You can see here very classic southwest westerly change, just banking up against the Great Dividing Range. Not much moisture gets over it all. It looks colder, doesn't it? In fact, the whole place looks cold across the day when you go across all the cams. Going out north, out west a bit more, we can see here the change is not very deep. You can see Bathurst is already under pretty clear skies, and that means it's going to be pretty chilly for them tonight. And I think this game, Sam's going to be for us too. I think that the winds, they did get up there for a little while, but they've basically sort of tapered off a bit. And we'll look at some fresh jobs in a minute. But that says to me that tonight could be fairly frosty and fairly cold. And I mean, we'll all enjoy that, I guess. But yeah, it'd be nice and chilly, and we'll catch up with what's the week that was in a minute. We'll quickly have a look here. This will give me the time, give me the temps, and we'll see what tonight's going to come down to. I don't hold too much faith in these temperatures. Over always a few degrees over. This is EC. What's it going for? Yeah, 5, 6, 7 degrees. Yeah, I mean EC I think has a little bit more, a bit windier. So if I was to go into the wind here, you'll probably find it's yeah a little bit more sort of downslope stuff action happening there. But I'm not sure that we're going to see a lot of that, given to what we just saw in the webcams. It doesn't appear overly strong on the other side of the hills either. So, um, oh, excellent. On the TV, that's a nice little setup. That's a good way to watch it. Um, yeah, good. I'm used to just talking to myself anyway. I spend most of the time at home by myself with the better half working away, and I work from home. So usually anybody replies back, "Hello, Deborah. Love you to see you. Thank you for popping by." Um, and I was just yabbering here about the temps for tonight. GFS is getting pretty cold as well, down to 5 out in the southwest. I think it'll be actually a bit cold now. Let's have a look at Icon saying it's got 5 as well. Yeah, and you can bet your bottom dollar when Icon says 5, it's probably going to be more close to a 5, maybe a 3 or 4. It does look like a cold night. Oh, there you go. There's a 4 and there's a 3. So definitely down to about 3 tonight, maybe even lower. You can see even here it picks up quite nicely about how those temps cluster in certain areas, and you wonder why Penrith, which is just only a few clicks up the road, doesn't get as cold as that southwest. You can see here, I think it's got something to do with obviously. I think the higher parts of the like the Central Tablelands and the Blue Mountains is actually over towards Oberon. So you've got around Shooters Hill, which is I think it's about 100 meters higher than um, uh, Blackheath, or sorry, around Katoomba and that sort of stuff as well, about Mount Boyce, I think. And it tends to have some sort of, affiliate with this, the air just actually sinks down this valley, like the Gross Valley, and then sort of pulls at the back of Warragamba and through down into Camden, and that sort of stuff too. I think this is a great sort of visual picture about how that happens, which is great. So we now sort of understand why Camden tends to get colder than most other places, especially in these light wind situations. Um, when you can have these pockets of cold temperature because the air is very still, and it's not moving around, so you're not getting that agitation and the mixing that you would do normally. So the air just sits there, and then the heat escapes into space if it's clear, which it should be tonight. And there you go. There's these temperature drops. But then, of course, when you have the more uniform temperature range across, it might be some cloud covering across, or there's like a light breeze coming across, which keeps it pretty uniform. And again, you can see here Axis picks up quite nicely. There's a real tongue of actually very cold air down at 3 again, and Axis like pushing down again from that more elevated space through Black Springs and up through Shooters Hill and places like that. Fascinating. I've never thought it to look this way, but this is picked up very nicely. Let's see what also Axis C has to say about it. In fact, Axis VT, which is Axis Canberra, you can see it cuts off half of Sydney, but it does actually get the back end here much better. But I find that Axis C and Axis V actually pretty crappy for min temperatures at night. Um, they're okay during the day, but at night time they just seem to be very uniform, which is unusual for a higher res model, which has a like 1.5 kilometer resolution or something like that, as opposed to EC, which is 7 kilometers. But sometimes that that specificity, whether it's because it's too high res. I think sometimes maybe the devil gets lost or the overall pattern gets lost in that. But you can see there's like quite a few cold hollows across there, and let's go across to 6 and 7, which is when the coldest part of the night is really just before the sun rises, or as it rises. You can see here quite a few patches of cold, right, cooler than, sorry, cold water is cold, 6 or 5 degrees is quite cold, sort of pushing across the basin. And so you can see like a sort of speckled effect as it does that. And then away it goes, gets, well, yellows, which is, mid-teens, late teens. Looks warmer, but not really that warmer. We all know that. But yeah, so it looks like it's going to be cold tonight. So if you're planning on getting outside or outdoors, just bear that in mind. It is going to be chilly, chilly, chilly. Rug up, please, because yeah, it's going to be frosty, Frosty the Snowman out there. And we love it. This is what we expect from winter. I'm so glad that we're actually getting a proper winter sort of temperatures this year, unlike we've had sort of other years where it's been sort of stayed quite mild. Um, it has actually been pretty coolish actually in the last week, hasn't it? Like after I'm going to pull up the temperatures for the past few days, and you can have a look at them in a minute. And yeah, it's been both night times and daytime temps have been reasonably quite cool, which is, it's unusual, it's nice, it's different, as Kath and Kim would say. But it is enjoyable, except for if you've got, of course, you have the poor old Mr. Riders, and then that can be quite unpleasant for you at this time of year, I'd imagine. Like, and I do feel for those people, to be honest. It's really getting like a jackhammer on the outer limbs because of just how cold it is. But anyway, it is what it is. I guess the poor buggers, I guess they get to live with this sort of stuff, and they work out around just exactly how they can live with it and make it work for them. Okay, I'm going to um, get into here. I'm actually going to open up screen for you first. I'm going to bring up the presentation for this week, because in my mad rush to be here on time and get the IT to be compliant, I didn't quite open them just in time. So let me get this sorted for you, and then we can quickly check out what is going on in the past week, what we've got coming on the week ahead. We've gone through, and I pulled out all the latest rain models as well. We're going to have a check at exactly what El Nino's up to in terms of us for weather and water, and then what we can expect going forward in the next season, especially spring. And any storm numbers, I think, might be pretty happy. But anyway, here we go. Let's not ruin the surprise. Let's put it over here. And this is the Nerds Basin Weather Weekly Wrap and Outlook again. And I better go here and click on the little graphic that says, why, the weather wise. And let's get into that. Did I see? I think good dumps of snow in the mountains. Yes, finally, I saw that too. I did. We talked a few times week on week about the snowies and about how it would be a late and a poor season. And yeah, but I'm glad they got something. And this is the absolute perfect setup for them, actually. Very zonal setup where you have this west to east winds. It gets a chance to sort of travel across the Great Southern Ocean, and their fronts get to sort of hold together. I mean, even though, as we know, the sea temperatures can be quite uniform and don't drop as rapidly. But once they do drop, they are great at preserving the fronts and the colder upper cold pools as they sort of traverse from Antarctic continent up and through us, which obviously adds to the snowfall events, because the colder the air, of course, the better you have of getting snow, and of course the increased instability, etc., etc., and then you get these sustained massive dumps across the snows, as opposed to sort of passing sort of sleety, snowy showers, bit more like we get here. So I'm glad. I'm so glad that, yeah, it would have been miserable. Yeah, it would have been terrible and wet there. I could think of nothing worse than, like, living in the snowies or even buying a property in the snowies, expecting it's going to snow, and then the winter comes and all you got is drizzly, overcast, grey crap for, weeks on end. It will just drive you nuts with maybe the odd flurry here and there. Like, I bought snowies because it's supposed to snow. All right, let's have a look into. So the week that was, we've had a look at the temps this week, and we can see, aside from Campbelltown and Para, which I think we're probably just about raining, maybe areas, but close to it. It's been actually quite cool across most places. Camden, and these are obviously average temps, but yeah, Camden came out um, pretty much bang on, which is not unusual. That they had a few nice warmer days, or milder, so I should say milder days down there. But I guess the real eye opener was the temps across the east. Obviously, all in airport mainly too, running below average, which is unusual because we haven't had many of those for many years. And so, yeah, the whole wide basin anomaly for July to date is minus 0.2, and that just gives you an idea just how cold it is. And that's obviously it's that's the daily mean temperatures. That's not only the max, it's also the min. So you take both together and you obviously work it out. That's why you think, what the hell, it hasn't been average 10 degrees in the day? No, it's the minimum and the maximum as your daily mean temperature. So you can see it's been running pretty cold. The only places and I was actually quite surprised at Campbelltown, but I'm just wondering if they sort of caught an edge of that sort of eastern moisture a bit more than they would normally do. But is it plus 0.1 isn't, a huge difference anyway. But generally speaking, do you feel it's been cold? It has been cold. And even the airport minus 0.6 is pretty impressive, to be honest. And let's hope those anomalies do stay in towards the end of the month, because that'll be another month where the Bureau has covered itself in climate glory yet again. Oh, I need to make sure that's on voice isolation. Yeah, it is good. Alrighty, let's go in now. We'll pop into let's look at rainfall for the past 7 days. And we can see, of course, we know where the wettest places were. And that was the coast because of that onshore flow. We can see, generally speaking, there was widespread 30 to 100 mils. The southeast of Sydney was definitely the favourite child on that event. You can see quite a few, and even the east coast. So, I guess around the area around La Perouse, Little Bay. I'm not sure what's sort of north of that, between sort of Bondi Beach and sort of La Perouse, where there's areas on there. I think is Waverley one of them. I think maybe further north, not sure. But anyway, we're in those areas, done pretty well for two reasons. The first reason is they jut out a little bit further than most of Sydney. As you can see, even just looking at this map here, there's this little part here between about Bondi Beach and about sort of north Botany Bay Head, just juts out that little bit further than the rest of it. So it just manages to catch those showers that sort of run parallel to the coast. It, collects them. I think no, Colonel's a little bit further back from that too, but he does tend to catch some of this stuff as well. As you can see, the purple's just clipping that. And they managed to get into that stream showers, which most of us miss. And then, of course, you can see the telltale signs of those, the lines coming from the southeast, dragging those showers on shore. But you can see just how weak that flow was on many occasions, where it just didn't penetrate much more further than sort of the start of the inner west. Except for the northeast corner up here, and they got that nice little sort of stronger flow there. That I think it was Wednesday night or Thursday night, where we could see on radar that the showers came in again. They sort of shuffled around and came in a bit from the northeast or the east northeast, and they copped it a bit better there, which is great to see. That's all the national park areas, and that sort of keeps them green and from drying out, which is what we want to see, especially if we have an El Nino heading into summer. Yeah, but generally speaking, the inner west did okay. As I said, the very eastern part of the inner west, in areas up to 50 mils, but generally speaking, it was pretty more 15 to 20 mils for most of the inner west. And of course, to remind you, inner west is basically anywhere sort of that Hornsby through to sort of Camden, Campbelltown sort of corridor. Like Camden is like one of these weird ones, because it's sort of actually, if you look at it geographical wise, it actually pretty more is inner west than it is actually west. But it's sort of the way that the basin sort of lines up, it tends to fall often in the western sort of patterns or western weather events as opposed to sort of anything more towards the coast. And I think that's to do with this sort of bump of it in the it's not really an escarpment you call it here, but there's quite a bit of geography here, quite a few hills and bits and pieces that tend to, around where Menai and just the back of Holsworthy there, I think that tends to sort of push Camden into the sort of the more dry sort of plains type stuff you get out in the west there, as opposed to the moister stuff towards the coast. Sort of like a bit like Campbelltown's like right on that boundary too. The flow is stronger. Campbelltown tends to do better because obviously they're a bit closer to the coast. Showers tend to make their way there and sort of filter out as opposed to Camden. They just don't make it in there. And of course, Camden suffers from the south and the southeast as well because of the Illawarra Escarpment and the Southern Highlands. It's in that sort of holish area. It really does better when you get this northeasterly sort of ploughing in and then welling up against the escarpment as it sort of tends to rise around here. And that's when they sort of tend to do better. The sunny coast, Western Sydney, 2 to 20 mils. You can see here. There's a couple places that didn't get much at all. So I was like having to get the microscope out, see it. I'm like, now 2 mils is pretty close enough. Sunny coast is a bit like a bit the inner west, 15 to 60 mils. I think around sort of Nora Head, which you can see there, and just around sort of Terrigal, maybe caught a few of those coastal streamers as well, but not as much as was down here. Um, and of course, that hotspot, as I said, down in sort of the very eastern sort of southeastern coastline, and then obviously down to the Royal National Park. And the Royal National Park does absolutely massively well when you get these southeasters, even if they're weak, because basically the Great Dividing Range extends to the coast there, and of course you have dramatic cliff plunges, so that air just barrels in and hits it and gets forced up over it, and you get a real localized orographic effect. But generally speaking, still, it's a bit wetter than the models expected. So yeah, it's going all right for July, given how dry we're told it's going to be. All right, let's go. We're going to have a look now ahead. We're going to not the what's we're going to look ahead at our season coming up and the end of winter and into spring, courtesy of me and all the work I've done and my little model that's pumped this out, take into account obviously CFS and CANSIPS and MME, which are the American, Canadian, and I think NME might be another American model, not quite sure. But I did that plus some of the leftover stuff from Copernicus, which is the European sort of Center for sort of climates and stuff. And I still think that it looks, especially on CFS and to a lesser extent Cancers, I remember, still does look. It looks like to be a wet end to winter. Now, I don't know. I was 50-50 about putting this up because we've seen just recently just how epic fails there's been right across the board in terms of some of these forecasts. But if this is what it spits out after chewing on the data, can't argue with it. May not agree with it necessarily, but it is what it is. But I still think, yeah, I mean, given what we've seen so far, and it really has defied expectations, there's a good possibility that we will see a bit of a wetter end to winter, which is good. But I think we need to also put that big asterisk next to that, is that we're coming up to the very sort of dry part of winter anyway, which is the sort of end of July into August, when we get those horrendous, westerlies barreling through and ripping every sort of piece of skin off our body. But we'll take it if it does come, and even if it's 5 millimeters more than we expected, that's still better than being below average, is it not? And that's sort of where things start to take a bit of a turn. Uh, my little model is actually throwing out, it could be a very stormy spring. Rainfall wise, maybe just barely scraping the average, maybe in a tad below. As you can see here, there's pretty a lot of white here, which is sort of, it says slightly above normal, but I don't know. I think I might have been a little bit excited when I was crunching that data. But all you have to do is get one decent cell, as on top of you, and there goes the rain gauge for full of stuff. So fingers crossed we get that. But in saying that, definitely is throwing out this stormier than usual, less rain events. So, um, and longer dry spells in between it, which I mean, I don't mind a stormier spring. That'd be nice for change because we've had sort of gluggy springs now for a few years because of it's, developing El Nino, La Ninas, or even in that the neutral zone, which is really neither here nor there. And we'll say that Sam is actually not very good for storms, given that because it's usually associated with onshore events, which aren't great for storms, as we know, because it means the upper atmosphere is moister and warmer. And then when it's in the, let me just get my switch right, negative events is onshore at that stage of the year, positive events are from the west at that stage of the year. And of course, westerlies come through. Upstairs is lovely and cold, but downstairs then you have the rain shadow effect, the lack of moisture. So, the sand doesn't really help these springy sort of events. So it'd be interesting to see how we go with that. It does tend to indicate maybe a little bit of moisture being sucked down from the Indian. Now, of course, even with a positive Indian Ocean dipole, you still get atmospheric rivers coming down from the Indian Ocean. They're just obviously not as thick and as active as they normally would be, but a bit of cold air upstairs, a bit of moisture can spark off this stuff. And, it may well be that we have like just a weak SAM sort of pumping some onshore moisture with an upper sort of trough coming across. That can definitely spark up some good storm days. Absolutely. So yeah, fingers crossed we get to see that happen because that'd be lovely to have a very stormy spring. And then heading into summer, of course, we're pretty already ready for this. We've been talking about it, even though there's been some models of speculation, and we always put a big asterisk next to anything that's this far away because really we've seen how accurate models are only for 4 weeks ahead, and they've been terrible. So but my little Lyman forecast engine did actually say it was going to be, below average rainfall, not unusual, and a drier sort of hot start, which I've been saying anyway, especially through December and probably into the early January at this stage. And one of the main reasons that as well is because we're going to see lower uh, monsoonal activity up north, and that normally means that we don't get that moisture draining to the south like we've had even this year when we had those days and days of that horrendous humidity. We won't see as long of that because again they're going to have a late start to their monsoon. So um, what that is good for, though, is good for storms and severe storms because the atmosphere is not glugged and plugged with lots of moisture. And so there's a more chance to actually get, a warmer atmosphere, obviously, air to rise. And, with a decent sea breeze, you could see some storm activity. So, like, there's a bit of a tension between, okay, maybe not getting, rain events at all or, very rare rain events, but better chances of getting storms and severe storms as well. So, we'll see. I mean, we've had a rainy few years. We can't be greedy, and I think an active storm season, even spring and into summer, would be fair compensation to me. For me, yeah, we'll see what Elena can offer us, but yeah, um, we will all cross our fingers, no doubt. And all right, let's have a look now into we're going into the temperature outlook, and look, there's no surprises here. Um, look, I was a bit 50-50 about this, and I think there's a bit of a milder pattern coming towards the end of this month, which does not surprise me. We've had, quite a moist onshore flow, and I think this big change getting through now is a bit of a pattern reset because if you look um, at the general flow after this, it's very much that zonal westerly to easterly, which is always not good for rain for us. But there is a chance of a rain event next week, towards the end of this week, but realistically, I wouldn't be holding my breath. It's the models have thrown it up and down so many times and like, nah. But look, the general trend is you can see it's been cooler in the eastern half, and that's definitely because of all the cloud and stuff that's been inland west of the Great Dividing Range. And we've obviously been also blessed with the upper air temperature in the cold area well subsiding as well. So we've sort of benefited from that event. But I think we're going to see some milder days now, but then colder nights too. But I'm not overly sold on this trend, to be honest. I think we may just round out average, maybe a squeak above, just depending on just how much of this continental air gets dragged down with these westerly sort of fronts passing by. That's what going to be the real key. It's just how much air gets dragged down from Central Australia because that's where the milder air obviously is at this time of year, and that can, but give us that little bump to 20 or 21, which is enough to sort of start pushing us up into that sort of above or slightly above average temperature range, but we'll see. Moving into spring, as you can see here, oh, I just realized I cut the headers off, but this middle one is actually spring, obviously, and then obviously anyone summer. Of course, we're going to see temperatures really start to escalate, and that's a consequence of having less moisture and less cloud cover, and also that dry atmosphere coming as a consequence of El Nino. And not shocked there to see that warmer temperatures. And my little engine was flagging some heat waves too, so um, especially during that January February period, which is when and the consequence of this is that it's nothing. Well, it's a little bit to do with Enzo. It's actually more to do with the monsoon. So take a step back. And here's a good rule of thumb for you. You can always tell when the North Australian monsoon's about to impact and push into Northern Australia, because we often get, not often, we almost always get a week or a few days at least of heat wave conditions, dry and very hot weather. And that is it's not, just coincidence. It's actually all connected. So, what we're getting when we get that dry hot weather is actually the Hadley cell, which obviously which is those atmospheric circulations we've talked about before, and they park themselves over land during winter, which is why we get those stable sort of cold nights, because the air's not really moving, and then you get sometimes if it's dips south, you get that onshore flow, and that's that sort of fluctuation in the Hadley cell. Then when it comes to summer, of course, when we had the monsoon, the Hadley cell pushes further south down to around here. And then as it does that, that's when we get those heat waves. So when you see that hot, dry air happening, and it's often around three key periods. So we're going to have, there's going to be like an early monsoon, you'll get it like late November, early December. If there's a normal monsoon, you get that just before Christmas, or maybe just even after Christmas. So if you had a hot, warm Christmas, you know that the monsoon's about to hit Northern Australia. And then if you get these early January type heat waves, then that's obviously the monsoon's late, and it's obviously going to be a very short monsoon season. So next time in this year, put my rule of thumb to work though. We get a heat wave. Let's keep an eye on Darwin or Cairns and stuff, and you see the monsoon rise within it's 3 to 5 days. Sometimes maybe 5 to 7 days, just depending on the strength of it. And so getting back to my point, of course, with out the impacts of the monsoon and cooling down that sort of central Australia and breaking down that sort of heat engine or the heat low that develops over, northwest. It's pretty more east WA, isn't it? Obviously northwest Australia. The air just sits there and sits there and sits there and heats up, of course, because there's nothing moving away. There's no monsoon. There's no cloud cover. It's just going to sit there and create this massive pool of hot, super hot air. And then, of course, you get the rare front that may push through, or something moves across the south and it just drags all that hot air across us. So yeah, but I think that's definitely I think we're going to see sort of a warmer spring and pretty a warm summer as well, unfortunately. But we'll see just exactly how that plays out, because as we saw last week, CFS wasn't overly sold on just being completely hot, warmer than average. But yeah, my little engine, I think it's been overwhelmed actually by CAN SIPs and also NMME, the two other sort of mid to longer term climate type models that you can get that do weekly outlooks. And they were CAN SIPs and NMME were very warm, like they were. Yeah, and I think they've sort of been I think there's been an over sort of influence there by perhaps the developing Enzo situation. I guess we'll see. But I think that's flowed across these outlooks as well. But we'll see. We've got that now on video. We've got pictures of it, so you can see what it does look like when that does happen. All right, let's have a look now into the rainfall forecast, and we can see here. This is I've just done just a general weather pattern for you. I've done the rainfall, haven't I? What am I talking about? I did actually lay a bit of a summary of what we're going to see across the end of the period. So at the end of the winter, we're going to sort of see these strong westerlies, especially in the south there, with the sort of moisture and show flow for us in between it. And that is going into obviously August, because that's the end of winter. And we're going to see a pretty sustained positive SAM. Let's see if that happens. This is my forecast. And I'm happy to people for reminding me of this, because unlike other pages, this is based upon a whole lot of models, not just one. I think we're going to see still this this shifting sort of dynamic situation where we get, like we're going to see this week, we're going to get a few days of absolutely brilliant winter weather, sun out, these westerlies, and then you'll get this onshore flow popping in between it. Um, you know, and that's sort of balance between just what dominates the other. But that's what the SAM does, sort of come in and it actually helps bring that onshore flow. And I just realized I meant to put El Nino there and I put La Nina. How stupid of me. That was because I was half asleep. But anyway, we all know what that means. That should be El Nino. But I've got it here in the text. But and then you can see in going into spring, of course, this is the end of winter. This is spring. We're going to start to see this, the heat start to build across the interior of Australia as normally does anyway, because as I said, just talked about the monsoon process, and that's where the monsoon generator engineers is in that massive area across central and northwestern Australia, and then the phenomenon is called the heat low, and that's really starts to develop really sometimes, early September into middle or late September, just depending on where the switch over is. I think we're probably going to see that sort of maybe happen even at the end of August this year and into early September. So of course, when that starts to build up that pool of warmer air and the front comes past and drags it across, of course you get those bursts of warmth, and we get all the doomsdayers come out and saying the world's going to end, but it's absolute natural climatic, phenomena. What we're seeing in process is quite normal. So, but one thing we are going to see is that dominance of high pressure starts to really make its influence known. And of course, we know that high pressure systems generally tend to usher in very fine, stable, and drier weather. But as we've seen already this winter, it's really location, 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 because the high pressure for this season has actually been anchored really sort of Tasmania, around that sort of area. And because it's been in that location, it's been able to drive onshore winds for us. And because of that and the location, the effect of those winds has had, quite a significant period over the Tasman Sea, and drawing a little bit of that warmer sort of southern coral sea in as well. And which is obviously aided in dragging moisture onshore for us. And of course, then it hits the Great Dividing Range and gets lifted over. And of course, those the air condenses and we see the showers forming generally. And the reason we haven't seen heavy stuff, of course, is that that moisture is actually very shallow. It doesn't go very far up into the atmosphere, and so you have like this sort of pancake or sort of a hamburger type effect, where you've got the surface, and you've got sort of the middle, and you've got the upper levels. And we get this lovely sloppy sort of wet surface, but then right above it is this lovely inversion of drier, warmer air, which is just basically stopping any moisture going up from that. So that's why you get these weak showers, and you get them also organizing in these like lines or streams or shower trains, as people call them. Some people have different words for them. And then you get these sort of onshore flows where these showers drive in. They seem to pick on one area and then completely miss, 5 kilometers down the road. And that's really the outcome and evidence of very shallow moisture and not being able to sort of get up and into the atmosphere that you would normally see with convective showers. And that's very much a classic signal of advective or wind-driven, shower activity, and it gets in those little lines. And just like you see at the surf, you can see sometimes foam stays in lines and bits and pieces. The atmosphere and the surf actually share a lot in common in terms of that sort of fluidic properties. And so you can often replicate what you see happening on the coast up in the air. So it helps you give you a visual about just exactly, what happens above us. And it's not a lot of mystery. There's quite a lot of obviously study and that sort of stuff to show this. But yeah, it's how I get my head around upper dynamics sometimes too, because they, not being a physics person or a math person at all, they tend to get me in the field sometimes. And I think, what the hell is that just about? But then I try and then envisage that in terms of the surf and seeing how the surf, when you get those days where the surf's that big and the waves hit that and they have that backwash. And I mean, all those things you see happening on the beach definitely happen up in the atmosphere as well, obviously with different terminology and different effects, of course, but generally speaking, the principles are the same. And that may help you, and I hope it does help you, but help you then visualize when I waffle on about stuff happening in the upper atmosphere. You can then start to think, oh, okay, a bit like when you get backwash at the surf, or when you get like a strong storm surge, there's like one way of going in. That's like really what a long wave trough is like, just one big like surge of storm like big surge of surf, and then you might have this sort of shallow, frequent sort of waves, where there's nothing really driving it, and then that's like shortwave trough, in and out, in and out, in and out. Um, Anyway, I'm just rambling again, but that's cool. And of course, then summer, which is the last, here we can see really that, high pressure is really dominating in that subtropical ridge as well, which is really locking itself in, which is very much associated with the Hadley cell activity and the Walker circulation, which is what drives ENSO and also drives the monsoon stuff. And really just locking in that hot air over Australia, not letting it seep out away, which is what the monsoon is great at doing, is diffusing it and getting rid of it. And so, of course, the end consequence of that's going to be, some pretty decent heat waves. And you can say that you knew about this back in July, and people just stop being drama queens. It's not the end of the world. They will get them time and time again. And in fact, I remember reading once when I think it was when Cook first arrived in Australia. He spoke about horrendous storms when they first arrived, and then because that was in January, so it must have been a good stormy January. And then you can read about the horrendous droughts and stuff they suffered, and I think they almost wiped out the whole penal colony. If I remember, there's one drought back at from my sort of dark days of history, trying to remember this stuff. But you know, wet, dry, it's a cycle that we've had for millennia, and it's going to continue on for millennia. All right, enough. So that's really what the pattern ahead is. I think a sort of wetter into winter. I think a stormy spring, but drier, but much stormier, which is great. I love that. And then I think very sort of dry, hot summer, but I think a wet flourish at the end, but also the interspersed with some pretty severe storm outbreaks across it as well. So something for a bit of something for everybody in that little buffet menu there. Um, and this is my synopsis. I could put this up and just read this off for you, but I wanted to just, show off and see if I can remember it word for word. But, we're coming off a wet and cool week this week with, we've got slightly cooler days, as we've just seen, and the pattern is obviously driven by these strong southwesterlies and westerlies associated with the SAM. And we're looking to stay wet with more frontal systems and coastal lows. Whether we get an ECL or not, still not sure yet. It's one of those annoying seasons where the upper patterns are actually very, very supportive of ECLs. You've got lots of cold air coming through regularly. We've got strong jet stream activity. We just don't have the response on the surface. We don't have the blocking highs, for example, to trap the ECLs on the coast and also pull up the moisture. We have these systems because they're quite dynamic and they're racing through quite quickly. They don't get a chance to sort of get themselves, get organized, get their acts together when they get onto the coast and get that rapid intensification or, bomb cyclone or bomb cyclogenesis is the correct term, as I think as they like to say, which is where, basically it goes from nothing to a low within, 12 to 18 hours. And you get those Pasha Bulker type setups where just, rain and winds and, storm surge are absolutely insane. But we're still going to see plenty of Tasman lows, which can, as we've seen recently, impact us by throwing back extra moisture and also helping trap some of that sort of onshore flow and squeezing it a bit more and actually making it a bit more potent. And obviously, there's still a chance of those coastal troughs, especially with that upper cold air pushing through. As we've seen, coastal troughs love that upper cold air because you have that temperature gradient between the upper air and the surface air, which is that lovely, soupy, warm Tasman, relatively speaking, of course. And that gradient that's created increases instability just dramatically within a period of hours, which is where you get these lows and Tasman lows bombing just as they get up the coast because the gradient is just so different. They explode. But then we're looking into spring, as we've said, it's going to be warmer, but I think it's going to be a wetter start to spring because there'll be a bit of a lag effect from the end of winter, but we're going to start to see pretty dry conditions. But we should see, as I said, it should be a stormy spring and hotter across summer, unfortunately, and drier, but with severe storm outbreaks interspersed with that. And then we'll see. I mean, I don't put summer with much more than like a indicative at this stage. It's just too far out, and the models have been so wrong lately. Generally speaking, the El Nino pattern is, if it was to hold, and this is another thing, sort of rule of thumb you can do by, is that it develops during spring. This one developed a bit earlier, so the breakdown could be earlier too. So that's something you've got to remember. But generally speaking, when you see the build up, like these things start to break down, to build up in the Enso zones, which is off to our east out in the Pacific, there's a lag time, and the lag time really relates to just how strong they are, or how active they are. So that sometimes the lag time can be 3 weeks, and sometimes it can be a month, or 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And obviously with this one, because it's going to be a strong one, as they tell us, the lag time could be 3 weeks before you see what happens out there is reflected back across us in the pattern. So I think that's when you normally see it in spring. You start to see these the pattern change, and it can either be dramatic, or it can be sort of more gradual, and it tends to obviously go back to just about how deep the system is, whether it's a strong La Nina or El Nino, or a weak La Nina or El Nino, for example. So you get more of that sort of very rapid transition when obviously the strength of, and I think we're going to see that in spring. I think we'll have well, this is what the forecast engine is showing me anyway. We'll have like a cooler, sort of wet, dry, cooler, wet finish to sort of winter, bit of a hangover or lag over effect into the start of spring, and then whack in, it will rush, and then we'll still get some storms and that sort of stuff, because the SAM will stay active and bring in some of that cold air up, and that's great for creating this sort of stuff. And a stormy spring. And then usually you would say, depending on what the timing is and when the El Nino started and just how strong it is, of course, you'll then have that period, that torrid period at the sort of towards the mid or end of November, right through to sort of mid to even end of December or start of January, where it's dry, it's hotter, it feels nasty. And we're just all waiting for the Northern Australian monsoon season to break, because then it breaks that Hadley cell, that blocking cell that's been sitting there and just reinforcing itself by getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And it comes in and washes that out. And suddenly, when the heat no longer has that hold, then it allows these systems from either the north or the south then to rush up, and you get these contrasting heat and cold events, and that's where you get these storm outbreaks, severe storm outbreaks along those sort of the barriers between that sort of hot air and that cold air. So I think that's generally the pattern we're going to see. So I think we'll see at this stage a hotter, dry December, and probably into the start of January. And I think we'll then see the pattern break mid-January, maybe not even to till Australia Day, and we should see an average, should maybe a little bit above average finish to February. But again, we'll just see the timing of this Enzo event, the El Nino. It started a bit earlier than usual. Maybe it will finish a bit earlier. Like I think we looked at last week, we saw the sea surface temperatures move to more of an El Nino Mordecai towards sort of early summer to midsummer. So that could allow moisture to penetrate into us a bit earlier than the models are expecting. I guess we'll find out when it comes to this December, or when this time of year in summer. But that's pretty much what the go is for the end of winter, spring, and just a flashy look at summer. But again, I don't put too much weight on it, because things will change quite dramatically. All right, what I want to do then is we're going to go into my favorite part of the week, which is our weekly weather WTAFs. Oh my God, look at the time. It just goes so fast. I just think I've been talking for like 5 minutes, and you guys are pretty all comatose and knocked out by now. And I look up and it's already that time. Wow. All right, let's go. We're going to look at the weekly WTAFs, and we have got some grimacing to do today. Uh, One of our favorites of all time. And let's bring them across, because I think you maybe have to guess as well. But I was sent this by one of our regulars during this week, and the question was asked was like, is this possible? Is this going to happen? And you can probably guess. Our lovely mates at Your Weather Channel, who absolutely are going, I'll make it bigger here so you can see that, who absolutely are addicted to the clickbait revenue model that they have got going with obviously Facebook and their social media, which is that put out the most eye-catching, clickbait-worthy headline you can find, get the people hooked in, and then at the end of it go, this is just what we see. This is, maybe not going to be just whatever we see, etc., etc. So all I want to say is that, take this with a grain of salt, what you see here. But, we No, I'm not gonna say I actually take great delight in actually pointing out people's blatant clickbaitery when it happens because it's just one of the things that plagues the weather community with this sort of trash. And some days I almost get tempted to go back into get involved in that sort of model myself because I've seen plenty of other content creators lately do that, and I actually get very disappointed with them by doing it. Including our friend at the on the YouTube channel there, Josh's. Every video that comes out of his now has the word, "This is going to be severe, Australia. This looks severe," and you either believe in the quality of your own content or you don't. And if you do, you don't need to use the headlines. You just do. You just say it, and the people who are valuable will be then. The people who just want the drama and the gossiping of it will go where they need to go, I guess, to find it out. And it is what it is. But this one was a beauty. Hello, trendsetters. Just a bit of a heads up. And that's another thing is the language that's used is always very indicative about where the post is coming from and the general intent of the post. If it's really just about feathering their clickbait and their reactions revenue stream, they always use these things like trendsetters and just a bit of a heads up, we're just helping out, and then they launch into a lovely piece of hyperbole, which is to really like agitate your emotions. And then, but it may not happen in the way they go. So, of course, when you come back and people come back to hold them to account when things don't happen, they say, "Oh no, no, our post said here quite clearly it may not happen." Um, lol. Um, but this one is there is potential in obviously uh, commas, inverted commas. What are they called now? They're apostrophes. I'm not sure. I always forget that one. I get it wrong. Apostrophes is the single one. The double one's quotes. I don't know, whatever it is. My brain's going mushy. It's that time of the afternoon. Of a major. Now, again, remember what I said? Indicative language is always a key to trailing out where a post is coming from. And so if someone's using a major East Coast low that is about driving the clicks. And the potential is their way of getting out of accountability. So by putting it there, they can say, no, 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 we told you very clearly there, it says potential. Baloney, because your next sentence goes major East Coast low for most of New South Wales coast and the east and blah, blah, blah for the next few weeks and rah, rah, rah. And I'll show you the models in a minute, and I bet you any money, you're not going to see any retraction from these people when I show you what the models look like for next week. But where is I wanted to zoom in. I can magnifier. It's I. Oh no, what is it? Where flipping? Everybody can see it there. Point me in the right direction because my adjust show magnifier. Is that it? No, that's not what I want to do. I don't want a massive big map. Where is my zoom in, zoom out, peoples? Maybe it's in the file. Is that in the file, please? Can anybody see that you just taser me from your armchair? I honestly can't see it. Like I normally would see it. Like you can see, like zoom in, zoom out. It must be here. It's got to be here. Come on, it's got to be here. Ah, there he is. Zoom in, zoom out. Oh, of course, there's a plus and minus. Duh, brain. All right, let's go. There we go. Well, let's go minus a bit now. Yeah, there we go. Of course, now I've got the both. We don't really need that now. Thank you, Mr. Hide Magnifier. So, you've got clickbait, entrance, qualified statement, which means they can't be held accountable. Most of New South Wales coast, so, spread your clickbait far and wide. Then models are mixed on this, however. So if models are mixed, why choose one? You shouldn't have any, and you shouldn't be doing the post if models are mixed, let's be honest. But then we go on to again qualify saying, however, AIFS is going to give us, which is the AI EC model, AIFS is going to give us the best clickbait hyperbole stuff. So let's go with AIFS because it's got lovely colors. So I mean, yeah, automatically, as soon as you see models are mixed, then you should just clock off and say, yeah, well, boohoo. If models are mixed, why are you showing me one? Because I always show you the whole lot, even if it's good or bad. I show you the lot because we make their minds up on what we see, and I give the evidence, and we walk you through the evidence, and in the end, you make decisions that you think as well, and certainly you listen to people who you think talking the truth or there to help you, educate you, and you trust them absolutely. But anybody who says models are mixed and then goes on to cherry pick one model, they're not worth trusting. And they'll go, but we've been right plenty of times. Yeah, well, a broken clock is right, correct twice a day. So that doesn't mean anything. Um, we won't get into details just yet, as we want to see more data coming in. Like, then why post? If you don't want to get into details, don't post. You shouldn't post. It's actually irresponsible to post. Again, big red flag when they say we don't want to get into details, which means they have no details. They don't know about the details, but they're just putting this up because it looks good. But it has the potential to bring in some real nasty weather in terms of rain amounts, wind, and coastal erosion, including Sydney. Of course, any low and any weather has the potential to bring in some real nasty weather. And then again, you're talking in these generalities, so you can't be held accountable to it. You can say, well, it did rain. I told you it was going to rain. It's always the implication, and it's always that come out and that hidden sort of meaning that they have. Like that, you can always tell these posts straight away. Where's the rainfall makers? Like, where's the rainfall amount? Where's your forecast? Put them on. Let's have some hard evidence. None. It's just like in generalities, because you can't hold anybody accountable. You can't fact check generalities, because if it does rain somewhere on the East Coast for that day, then of course I'll say, well, we'll see, we were right. With sea surface temperatures well above normal. I'm not sure they actually are well above normal right now. I think that's, and again, some hyperbole from the media and the Bureau. I haven't actually had a look at them just the last couple of days. But last time I looked at it, they were above normal. Not unusual when you have days and days of onshore flow. Especially from the southeast, because I've told you before, and hopefully you guys remember, there is a process that happens along the east coast of Australia, specifically New South Wales, which is actually quite rare across the whole world, where we have this upwelling and downwelling situation, whereas we have days and days of these southeasterlies, which are normally cold. We all know that. We feel cold, but actually what it does is it actually causes a downwelling, which means that warmer water is sucked in from the north, and of course, and then pushed down towards the continental shelf. And of course, of course the water is going to be warm, because where's the water coming from? Somebody's going to replace it. And so it's coming in from the north and to replace that water that's lost. And of course, the converse is that you have this days of this northeasterlies, where it looks like, it's sunny and warm. You think, oh, the sea temperature is going to be warm, and it's actually frigid as anything, because then you have this upwelling. And it's just the reverse process of those, the winds blowing against the shoreline. And I'm not really even sure myself still how the physics are, because I've looked at it, I've watched a video about it, and my head just cannot get around the actual process. But there is actually quite a scientific process, and anybody out there who's studied hydrology or those sort of things, or oceanography, which is obviously about the ocean itself, hop in the chat and let me know. But that's what I believe, and it's quite rare actually across the world. There's very few places in the world that actually see this, and we're one of them. So just remember, southeasterly blowing, the sea's lovely and warm. Go for a swim. Northeasterly blowing, the sea's going to be cooler. And even though it looks like it's inviting, it's going to give you shrivel, and the shrivel index is probably like -10. So if you haven't got much more before that, you'll have even less after that. And then of course they finish off with their lovely, if we see more evidence of this happening, we'll provide further updates. So no locked in information, no timeline, no accountability, just the old generalities. And it doesn't happen. Well, we said if we had any information, we would tell you about it. So yeah, that's my WTA for the week. And then I'm going to go bring up and have a look at Windy Together, and we can see just how much of a guffaw this lovely prediction was. We're going to look at EC now. Let's have a look at the rain. We can look at this together because this is live. I haven't looked. Last time I had it here, there was some showers next week, but that's about it. We can see here there's that change coming on Wednesday. May clip us on Wednesday or Thursday. You can see here nothing on the ordinary. Goes to that onshore flow, goes into the usual post-change glob, which is nothing. And you can see here, and we push back out. So that's us done. You can see here, definitely some sort of weakish low way up in the Coral Sea, probably more just the trough. You can see there's no real circulation around it. There's no real intense convection around it, which just means it's a typical southerly change pushing up into pretty northeasterly or northerly, and just a bit of a weaker low forming. And we can see it doesn't much happen. So has anybody caught the ECL yet? Because I'm still struggling to find it. I mean, that is only that's only EC. Well, actually, I'm just we just had something. Now that's interesting, and that's definitely not anywhere he is. But we'll have a look at that in a second because that looks fascinating. Now that is a setup where you could see an ECL, but it doesn't actually last. But that is, you can see here a very tight little circulation on the coast as it goes up, but it's not an ECL. That's a strong cold change with a pretty deep trough. You can see there, but that looks fascinating. But again, it's the week after, so it's not even worth spending a long time on because things are going to change dramatically. Right, let's have a good GFS. Let's see if GFS has this ECL that we just got to give everybody a heads up for. No. There's a Tasman low out there, or a weak trough out there. There's something out there, but you can see there's no really intense convection. There's nothing happening whatsoever out there. And I bet you they're salivating the thought of getting a post out pretty tonight when they look at EC just then and like, oh my God, there we go. There's another one coming through. And you can see GFS has squat all. Just a typical cold change coming through there towards the end of the run, but it's so far away. It's not even worth the electrons to put the stuff out. All right, let's have a look at Icon. You can see here Icon has this cold change coming through on Wednesday, which I flagged a few times. Really not even getting us. Clips in the mid-north coast. Bit of lightning up the coast, which is always good to see when you get cold changes coming through. Obviously means that the upper air is pretty cold. But you can see there's a bit of a trough that maybe goes on the mid-north coast. Some storms up there, which would be nice, but there's no low. There's no ECL there. Bit of a circulation there, but it's pretty more a trough. You can see there's no strong convection around it, and it stays well off the coast. So again, John, your Weather Channel engaging in clickbaitism, not surprising. All right, let's have a look at Access. Access, we can see that change again, miss us completely, pushed up, clips the mid-north coast, and away it goes, leaves behind it that usual onshore stream showers, which you'll see with these changes. No low, no Tasman low, nothing. And into next week, we're going to see the same sort of clickbait porn we just saw from EC, which is, oh, let's throw something interesting out there and keep the dullards fascinated and another post from, but you can see there's absolutely nothing even on Access at all. So there you go. So, you know, if I wasn't blocked from their page, and I don't know how actually they block even my personal profile. I mean, if they block like the page profile, it must automatically block anything that behind as well. Anybody associated with the page. I don't understand why. Well, I know why I got blocked because I called out their absolute irresponsibility, but I didn't know it could block your personal one either, because now I don't have to try and find informants to go on there and get me info. So you can fill up my WTS. But let's go. We'll have a look at let's have a look at tomorrow. We'll go to Access Sydney. It's been pretty good of late. Let's not skip through. It's going to be a cold night tonight, so rug up, especially in the southwest. Even though Access Sydney says 6 or 7 out there, 5 near, but now expect much like this morning, probably even lower. So was it 3 out there this morning, 3.4 or something like that? I expect maybe 2 tonight, probably even less, even lower. I think there's probably a better chance of frost tonight too if the wind dies down. If it doesn't die down, then there'd be no frost or fog because the air gets mixed into the surface. Nothing gets really a chance to form, but it's going to be cold. Even if there's a little bit of wind around, it's cold everywhere tonight. With the coast dipping down to single digits, 8 degrees, 9 degrees. It's going to be chilly. Tomorrow looks a bit nicer because the winds switch a bit more from the southwest, which is that cold stuff, to northwest and Access Sea. But I'm not overly 100% because if we looked at the sat pic before, you can see there's still quite a lot of cold air barreling in from the west. So not sure. So tomorrow's really going to hinge on the direction of the wind. If we wake up in the morning and it's more northwest, then we can expect a milder day. If it's more to the southwest or even to the west, I think we can expect a bit cooler. And I think if we look at Access at EC, for example, you'll pretty find, I don't know, even EC is a bit milder tomorrow, 18, 19, GFS is 19, nice. So there we go. Looking a really pleasant day tomorrow. Icon weather always has a cloud. No matter, it could be every other model will be sunny. Icon still has a cloud in it because it's just like maybe that's its flair. Got to have a cloud. Put a cloud. You look at everybody else: sunny, and sunny. But there's a cloud in Icon. Got to always have the cloud. But yeah, tomorrow looks absolutely gorgeous again. I think that the winds will still have a bit of a bite. In fact, if we put on the wet bulb, which is like the feels like we get the, you can see we're at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it suddenly feels like 9 to 10 degrees, 11 maybe up in the north. Well, there's maybe 11 in a patch there in someone's driveway. But if it's 9 to 10 degrees, it's going to feel chilly. Even though the sun's going to feel warm, it's going to be the air temperature will be 19, so you're going to feel almost 10 degrees chillier like it did today. So just be aware if you are working outside tomorrow. The mayor of Camden, I'm hoping he's had a chance to pop by. I haven't checked the chat yet, but hopefully he's well. His speedos won't get a workout tomorrow. It'll be too cold. All right, that's it. That's it for we've covered everything. We've done in depth as usual for you all. We're going to turn to your questions now, and I'm going to put on. What am I going to put on the background? I'll put on the sat pic. I think we can look at the stuff that's coming into us from the west, which is why I'm just a little bit reluctant to say it's going to be mild tomorrow. You can see it's got a batch of cold air here. I actually like the visible. I'll put that on. We'll put on the last 6 hours. Well, in the background there, because it'll take probably 6 hours for Windy to load. All right, let's go. We'll pop in and we'll say hello. Oh, Mr. I Go Camping. Lovely to see and chat to you. Hope you're well. And I've been playing with your Pluvio. It's very lovely. I'm sure your wife's very happy about your Pluvio. Pluvio site, lovely. I love it. I would make one suggestion now. I would probably get Claude to change your initial load on and probably put an option to load the other data like a secondary thing, because it took freaking forever for me to load that main page. I almost gave up because it was like loading. But then I realised it pulled out nearly every single range station across the known universe, so that's pretty why it was slow. So it's very comprehensive. I love it. Mr. Sharp, Mr. Mayor, I was actually speaking of you, speak of the devil, there he is. I hope you're well out there, Mr. Mayor, staying warm. You can hang up the speedos for tomorrow. I've got a robot voice. It's scaring my kids and my wife started crying. What? What's a robot voice? Was it did the sound go weird, or was it he's just being? I'm not sure. Did I have a robot voice, anybody, or was it just his? Let me know. Mr. Well, lovely to see you too. Hope you are fabulous. It is going to be cold. And everybody's here. It's Mr. P. See, I'm not going to go try tonight. Hope you're well. Yes, you're a little bit late, but that's okay. You'll catch up, I'm sure. All the info's there for you. I've got to start putting the chapters in. I know I'd say it every time I do it, but just I don't do it. I forget because I always have to rush off. Today I don't have to rush off as much. So, don't have to apologise. Absolutely, this is like you turn up when you turn up. there's no airs or graces here. Just appreciate you turning up. Good. You're more than welcome for the analysis. That's it. You're echoing Esther. I'm echoing. Well, I'm literally sitting on top of the microphone, so I'm not sure I'm echoing. I don't know what's going on there. My sound things here are all good. It might be it's just a little bit tad high if I turn it down, but then every system's too quiet, so not sure. But I'm literally thinking, like, if I open my mouth anymore, the microphone literally would sit down the back of my throat. Cold here. It is. It's cold here everywhere. I've actually in a study with the door closed, and Stormcat's not very happy about that. He's meowed a few times, but it is chilling. I can't put the heater on because obviously you'll hear it roaring in the background. So I'm sitting here, trying to keep warm. It's a bit echoey. All right, I'll have to listen to this. That worries me because it says my mic is on. Like literally, it's got a light in front of me and it's lit up blue, and I've got voice isolation on, which is normally supposed to. I hope it's not picking up. I mean, it says it's got it. I'm not sure. I'll listen back to the feed, but it's definitely. I'm literally sitting on top of it right now, so I don't know what more I can do. And it can't be any other microphone because there is no other microphone for it to use other than my Mac, but that's not the one using it. It's weird. Anyway, I'll look into that. There's no other one. That's sure. Anyway, I'm not sure, but no, it says I'm just looked on my system settings here now. It's definitely, it is definitely my Rode, the Mac, the mic that I use, everything. So ain't sure what's going on there. And the input volume is like, I might have dropped the input volume a little bit. Maybe the echoing is because I've got the door closed and the sound waves are crashing around the room, perhaps. Freezing. It was the windy this morning. Actually, there was actually that line came through the showers and that sort of stuff with and there was people saying there was a storm. Well, I went through and looked at, because I saw it myself and went through, and there was definitely a very sharp line. It would have been pretty gusty and sort of showery for a little bit, but there was no lightning anywhere recorded. And I looked at the Doppler, and there's nothing sort of above. The Bureau actually did have severe storm warning out for a bit of time there, but that was for the stuff when it was back sort of over the Southern Highlands or Central Tablelands. As soon as it got near us, it basically fell apart, and they dropped the warning faster than a politician caught any sort of scandal. But there was no lightning whatsoever. Someone said hail. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me there was small hail. The air was pretty cold on the edge of that as it came through. But when I looked at the cloud heights, there was nothing there that could actually generate hail. Nothing went that high, so I'm not sure. It was actually very much a mid-level sort of cloud band. You can even look on that satellite picture I posted this morning. You'll see no crisp whiteness there. It was all sort of dull grey coloured, which is very indicative of that mid-level sort of outer cumulus nimbostratus type stuff. There was nothing sort of poked its head above and went. I don't know. Maybe it was just super enough cold that it pushed down enough to sort of grab the very top of that and freeze it before it hit the ground. Perhaps. My AI face. Where's my AI face? What AI face? Am I posting the wrong screen today? Or maybe I'm in the wrong universe. What's my AI face? Well, what? What are we? What? I'm just totally lost. I am totally lost. Are you talking about the picture on the screen? The questions being? Oh! Oh, now I get it. Now I was lost. I did say I was going to put the sat pic on, didn't I? But I left the screen up. That's pretty what everybody was talking about. There you go. There's the sat pic. Wasn't much happening anyway. I was so lost there for a minute. I needed a roadmap today. It's been one of those days. Maybe it's the wind. It doesn't only just kick kids around, it kicks dull brains around too. All right. Well, if no one's got anything else positive or complimentary to say, just joking, obviously, no questions. I'm going to get you. Well, I actually quite enjoyed the 5 o'clock. I know people couldn't. There was a few laties, but I think 5 o'clock actually worked better for me. I didn't feel so stressed. I didn't have to rush about getting through things, and I got to cover things in a bit more depth. I got to waffle a bit more. Sorry, but yeah. Yeah, I just felt like it was not as rushed. It was lovely because Rach and I had, and Deb, when she came, we had a lovely time together. So you guys, no, you all missed out. Mr. Sharp was just sending me a message so I can see what I'm talking about now. Oh, yes, that's, yeah, thank you for that. That actually is me, probably when I was younger. I wish. But yeah, that's, I actually designed all that. I didn't draw it because I can't draw. I can tell you the famous time I had to do art at high school. I remember this one. I don't remember much from my childhood, but I remember this one. We got paired up. We had to draw like a portrait of the other, like our classmates. And I was already scared because I have no artistic ability whatsoever. And this poor guy didn't know what he was in for. So we did the art stuff, and then at the end he looked like that, and I swear he had to get years of counselling. And then anybody seen the Goonies? Then the guy, the weird monster thing that they find in the cave at the end of the Goonies. Yeah, that was probably what my self portrait looked like. And the guy didn't look anything like him. He was actually quite a nice looking guy, but he was traumatized. I was traumatized. I cannot draw to save the life. But I said, like, this is Picasso sort of vibe, and they were like, this is not even Picasso. Wouldn't mangle someone's face this bad. Yeah. So no artistic at all. No, nothing, even deep down, which is weird because my daughter actually is artistic. She draws quite a lot of anime and stuff like that. And I'll just look at her and think, you must have got it from your mother because you did not get it from me. Because, yeah. Anyway, enough waffling, enough yabbering. I hope you're all fabulous. Hello, Barry. Lovely to see you. Don't worry about landing late. You can always catch up. Is it supposed to be windy tomorrow? Yes, it's going to be not as windy as today, but it is. We're going to have a look for you. It's not so bad. there's a couple of peaks there early morning and then maybe the afternoon, but it's not anywhere near as gusty as you know. You can see the difference. I'm in moderate, so no, not as bad as today at all. But it's going to be chilly though, so just make sure no speedos tomorrow. Rug up. But yeah, tomorrow won't be anywhere near like today. Um, at all. And in fact, all the models are going. If I remember, they all has GFS, I think, is the only one that's sort of going for a bit more wind, but again, that's because it's smoothing things out because it's lower res. But even then, that's not gust. That's just basically that's at best gusty, but not even that really. It's just that's constant sort of 10, 15 knots, which is not at all worrisome in terms of anything other than it's going to feel cool. All right, and just for Barry's heads up, we just had a quick look at there was some misinformation wobbling around about next week about a possible ECL. There's nothing on any model about any ECLs, not even close to an ECL. There's maybe a weak low out on the Coral Sea, but then it's probably more just a trough wobbling around in the southerly flow hitting the sort of northeasterly and northerly flow with the ridge. That's about it. Nothing at all even looks close to being. So there you go. Bat it back to let people there on some sort of stimulant. All right, it's all done and dusted. Thank you so much for your company. It has been a longer one tonight, but it's good because we don't have to stress, don't have to run. We can chat, we can get through things, we can delve into other areas as usual. It lives up to the name of the waffle. Otherwise, it has been a pleasure of your company, and especially I want to shout out, especially Rach and Deborah for joining on time, boys. Cough, cough. It was actually lovely just hanging out with women for a change. And we didn't really speak money girly things in because it was obviously we didn't just chat and got on with stuff. But yeah, it was lovely having their company. And Rach had me on the TV, and so she's also now going to be booking in to see her psychologist this week because having to listen to me on the TV for a period of time by herself, she's also traumatized. But that's okay. We can all share our traumas together. That's it. Have a fantastic start to your weeks. And it looks like a beautiful sunny day tomorrow. It's going to be chilly though, so rug up, look after yourselves. There's a bit of rain maybe coming in this week. Not a lot this stage. In fact, we'll probably have a quick look at that just in terms of that, but I'm not sure. Yeah, look at that. Not much in the showers at all, even on GFS. Let's have a look at EC. Last time I looked this morning, EC still wants a few showers there, but nothing exciting. Icon wants no bar of it. Media Blue, the AI wants maybe some late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, and Axis has completely dropped it altogether, other than maybe a piddle on Friday morning. So there you go. We'll see what the morning models throw up. No doubt it'll be a completely different scenario, and it'll probably have a Cat 5 East Coast low sitting right on top of Sydney. That's the way it seems to roll these days, and but that's why you always keep you always keep all options open. Don't ever run out there with the sky's falling chicken little stuff. Anyway, waffle's done. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for your support and your company, and I will catch you tomorrow for our usual daily forecast and stuff. Okay. Good evening. Ciao.